A school newspaper called the campus pro-life group dangerous. One university in Texas removed a popular football chant after receiving complaints from students, and one university is removing the use of all capital letters in an effort to be more inclusive. I'm Ophelie Jacobson, and this is the Campus Countdown. For our number 3 story of the week, an editorial board from a school newspaper called the campus pro-life group a, quote, danger to the student body. An editorial board at a Case Western Reserve University school newspaper slammed the student government and administration for an early September decision that recognized the organization on campus, calling it a, quote, danger to the student body. Quote, CWRU does not care about its students. If they actually cared, they would have immediately considered concerns about the student body's immediate safety and the broader school community impacts, and they would have easily determined this organization to pose a danger, the Observer editorial board wrote. The pro-life group Case for Life seeks to, quote, protect and promote respect for all life from conception to natural death through education, outreach, and volunteer opportunities at local pregnancy centers. They've already faced criticism and calls for denying recognition since last year. Quote, it is not just that students have to worry about laws that impose on their bodily autonomy, but they also have to worry about being in an environment that is supposed to be safe but isn't, the student's editorial reads. Quote, who could care less if someone is pro-forced birth? But when that someone takes action to enforce that opinion on others, that's when it becomes dangerous. The editorial continues to say that the school's approval of Case for Life is just another example of the attack on reproductive rights, citing the new Texas law that bans abortion after 6 weeks. Quote, we already have to deal with anti-abortion laws dictated by governments that put our lives in danger, but now we have to face the reality of our tuition going to a club that makes the majority of the student body feel unsafe, the editorial board wrote. College is supposed to be a time where students are exposed to a variety of viewpoints and where students can really find an organization where they belong based on their values. No organization or club should be denied the right to exist based on their ideologies and beliefs. And plus, millions of Americans are pro-life across this country. This isn't a fringe or radical idea that these students are representing by creating a pro-life group on campus. And might I add that joining the pro-life group is a voluntary activity. If you feel threatened by it, you don't have to go to their meetings, you don't have to go to their events, or be a part of their organization. This is completely voluntary, so if you feel threatened, you don't have to join. Members of the editorial board are claiming that they feel uncomfortable with their tuition costs going towards this organization, but this leads to a slippery slope because anything nowadays can be deemed as dangerous or offensive. So, for example, I may find the Democratic Socialist Club on campus to be dangerous to society, but I'm not going to call for their removal because I value the variety of viewpoints and I know that college is supposed to be a marketplace of ideas. Plus, that's what makes college so much fun. Imagine if we only had organizations that were politically correct. How boring would that be? Not only would we have a lack of diversity in viewpoints, but this editorial board would have a lot less things to write about in their school newspaper. Switching gears now, football games at the University of Texas at San Antonio are going to be a bit quieter now, thanks to the school's decision to remove the popular football chant, "Come and Take It." Here to tell us more about that story is campus reform correspondent Sergei Kelley.
Thanks, Ophelia. A Texas university is ending a come and take it chant at football games, citing political concerns. The University of Texas at San Antonio President Taylor Egme is ending the popular chant after creating a task force to study the phrase. While the chant has ties to the Alamo, the president calls it a distraction from our mission and is likely to continue shifting our focus away from our work yet to be accomplished. He continued, I especially recognize that this decision will be unpopular with many of our loyal fans. The phrase, as well intended as it was upon inception and adoption, has increasingly become incongruent with UTSA athletics and our institution's mission and core values. In August, the president cited concerns with the phrase's association with the debate over gun rights. Egme announced September 10th that the popular phrase will be removed from all marketing in the university's digital environment. The University of Texas San Antonio Athletics has been tasked to create a new chant for the fourth quarter. How exactly will this go about? Will there be display boards with the new chant? Place people in the crowds? What? Campus reform will keep watch and report if the university attempts any violations against free speech. This is just another leftist tirade against an innocent tradition that is embraced by Texans and students at this university.
Thanks, Sergei. Oh, Canada. For our top story of the week, we're going outside of the US to our northern neighbor. An official at Mount Royal University in Calgary, Alberta, announced last week that her department will no longer be using capital letters in any of its publications. Associate Vice President of the Indigenization and Decolonization, Linda Many Guns, wrote in a statement, quote, "We join leaders like E. Cummings, Bell Hooks, and Peter Kaluchki, who reject the symbols of hierarchy wherever they are found, and do not use capital letters except to acknowledge the Indigenous struggle for recognition." The statement continued, quote, "We resist acknowledging the power structures that oppress and join the movement that does not capitalize. The Office of Indigenization and Decolonization supports acts that focus on inclusion and support the right of all people to positive inclusion and change." Many Guns then explained her rationale to campus reform. Quote, "When we capitalize England, Canada, provincial governments, those are the entities that have tried to erase us. This is colonial thinking and practice, and we remove our recognition of their power through removal of capitalization to a state of equality to bring awareness and recognition of the colonial force that has animated and shaped Canadian society's minds," Many Guns wrote. Quote, "It is to startle to bring awareness to the things we take for granted without thinking," she continued. "We need to be more aware of how we unconsciously follow social norms and question them." This university is throwing out all of the rules of grammar that we have been teaching our kids since they were very young. It seems as if wokeness is replacing correctness in academia right now, and that's a dangerous path to follow because it sets a horrible example to the next generation of leaders. And we at Campus Reform recognize that what starts on college campuses has a tendency to expand into modern society. So while this may be an isolated event at a Canadian university, we're certainly going to see more examples of this in the future, and we're already starting to see that right now. Campus Reform has reported on multiple examples of the same exact thing happening at American universities. For example, the English department at Rutgers University claimed there are biases embedded within grammar, and the University of Wisconsin at River Falls claims that using correct gender pronouns is more important than using correct grammar. And you can find more stories like this at campusreform.org. And look, there's a time and a place where I use lowercase letters, for example, when I'm sending a quick text message to my friend, but I would never use lowercase letters only when I'm sending an important email, when maybe I'm typing up my resume, or writing a news article, and I would certainly never use only lowercase letters if I were turning in any schoolwork. The bottom line is these universities are supposed to be institutions of higher education, but I find that very hard to believe when departments make decisions like this one. And now for everyone's favorite part of the episode, our woke tweet of the week is brought to you by a Syracuse University professor. A day before the 20th anniversary of September 11th, 2001, Jen Jackson, associate professor within the Syracuse Department of Political Science, who teaches LGBT studies, African American studies, and women's studies, expressed that she was, quote, disturbed by how many white pundits and correspondents talk about 9/11. Quote, "I'm watching Andy Card and Jay Johnson on MSNBC, she explained. Card just said that 9/11 was the first time that Americans ever felt fear. He said that it was the last morning we woke up without fear, and that the terrorists succeeded in introducing us to fear. Wow, she remarked, that's hella incorrect. Quote, white Americans might not have really felt true fear before 9/11 because they never felt what it meant to be accessible, vulnerable, and on the receiving side of military violence at home, she argued. Quote, we have to be clear that the same motivations that animated America's hypervigilance and responsiveness to terror after 9/11 are now motivating the carceral state and anti-immigration policy, she added. After significant online backlash, Jackson has since made her account private, and we at Campus Reform reached out to her to give her the opportunity to comment, to which she replied, "There is no scenario where I will speak with you about anything, ever." First of all, this is such an inappropriate remark to make on the day before the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Almost 3,000 lives were lost that day, and this professor felt it was the right moment to push her political agenda on social media. And might I add that many on the left are viciously trying to change the narrative of the events that happened on September 11th, 2001, and that narrative switch, have no doubt about it, is coming directly from the mouths of professors and teachers in academia. Those are all the top stories we have for you this week. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also follow along with all of the college craziness happening across the country by following us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Campus Reform. We'll be back next week, as always, with another episode of the Campus Countdown, but for now, I'm Ophelie Jacobson. Thanks for watching.